Welcome to episode number 13 of the Unstoppable podcast featuring published author Jake Ducey. My name is Dan J. Gregory and I am committed to hunting down the secrets of business mastery and human performance. My goal for the Unstoppable podcast is to share insights from some of the most successful entrepreneurs, inspiring thought leaders, world-class athletes, and prominent celebrities to help you to become unstoppable in business and life. Each week I'll be bringing you a new interview with an inspiring person and sharing my own results as I pursue the answers to the question, how can I create the ultimate edge in my business, make a significant impact, and live an extraordinary life? Welcome to episode 13 of the Unstoppable podcast. This is lucky episode number 13 because I have the great pleasure of introducing a very special guest to the show today. At only 24 years old, Jake Ducey is a two-time published author with the number one publisher in the world, Penguin Random House. His first books, Into the Wind and The Purpose Principles, have inspired countless thousands of young people to seek meaningful career and business success, all whilst making a difference in the world. And his new book, Profit from Happiness, is imminently due for release. Jake is a leading speaker for his generation. He has inspired over 500,000 people on his 2015 book tour, and he's been described as a 24-year-old Tony Robbins minus the hot coals, sharing some of the same stages that have launched the careers of the likes of Katy, Perry, and Eminem. Unstoppable Nation, I am proud to introduce Mr. Jake Ducey. Welcome to Jake. Really excited to have you on the show today. Lots of exciting things to talk about. So Jake, to give the listeners a bit of a frame for who you are and what you're doing right now.
Well, I am first, thanks for having me. I'm a 24-year-old author and I write inspirational leadership, motivational type of books. Self-published my first when I was 19 because every publisher said it sucked and it wouldn't sell. And it ended up selling really well. And Penguin Random House picked me up. So my work is largely traveling around, do a lot of schools, corporate gigs, and then running my own seminars. New one's called Rich Without Work. And whole message is just to show and inspire people to really dream bigger, move towards it, get paid for it, make a difference with it.
Awesome. So how did you step into this world of making this change?
Well, I dropped out of college when I was 19. I thought I wanted to study business. I had a college basketball scholarship. I thought I'll go sell something for some company that I don't care about. And I said, in economics class, I raised my hand. I said, hey, why can't we audit the Federal Reserve? And my economics professor said, shut up, memorize this formula. And this isn't an open discussion class. So I quickly realized it wasn't the most conducive place for my learning. Found a couple personal development books, thought they were stupid, never opened them. Opened me up to this whole part of myself I never knew existed, but I knew unconsciously existed in sports because I was a first team all San Diego. San Diego is a city right next to Los Angeles in California. I was a first team all San Diego basketball player, and I used visualization and I always unconsciously understood the power of where my attention went. Just from doing well in sports, but there was never a real conscious awareness around it. So everything started clicking when I started to discover more about the mind, the subconscious mind, and that led me to drop out, take a couple $1,000s, backpack around the world, and flash forward. It's last night I was just writing in my journal. It's been in April of 2016. It will be 3 years. So it's just under 3 years.
Wow. So what was the kind of pivotal moment that made you make the decision to pack everything up and go traveling?
It was literally in economics class. I was asking my teacher, why can't we audit the Federal Reserve? And my teacher literally told me to be quiet. And I was literally arguing with him in the class, and the whole class was basically shut up, Jake, I'm trying to memorize this. And that's when I realized no one even cares. They really don't care about how to how to fix the economic problems. They don't care how to create solutions. They don't even care about thinking about what type of job they want. All we want to do is pass a test. And I know education is important, but there has to be some thought. And so I was like, this place is not going to help me. And so it was literally, I went out of class, and it's how my book Into the Wind starts, literally in economics class. And I walked out to my friend. I said, I'm dropping out, and I'm going to go travel, and I'm going to go be a writer. And my friend was like, haha, okay, whatever. And that was it.
How soon did you book your first ticket?
Within a month, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And where did you first start your journey then of your travels?
I went to Guatemala, and stayed in a town called Lake Atilon. It's a little old Mayan village, lots of poverty, and it was just a great experience to be removed from everything that I had grown up with and been accustomed with. So at first I thought I was, going to go find something. And long story short, after hitchhiking through Australia, traveling through Indonesia, I had a fall while I was hiking, and I saw my life flash before my eyes, and these locals saved me. And I realized I was traveling around the world looking for something in the world in order that I would find this sense, like something that I could live for, something I could use my talents and my passion for. And I realized I was not going to find it. I had to go home, and that's when I came back and started writing, and this kind of career was prompted.
Wow. So did the decision to make, because you said when you left, you said you were going to go off traveling and become a writer. So had you already planted the seed in your mind that was something you wanted to do before you traveled, or did that come up as a result
but
of
it
travel?
wasn't that realistic because I failed English class in high school, and I did so bad on my SATs. I was really good at sports, and I was never like a super bad student, but I finished an independent study in English class. That was definitely my weakest class. I finished in an independent study because my teacher had me removed from the class. And so I was not it was not my strong point. So no one really believed me or took it that seriously. Okay, that it would just be like a summer camp hobby. I'm going to write a book. And no one took it that seriously. But I don't know, I had it in my mind, and I kind of thought, if I could apply the same things I learned in basketball, which was I could never jump the highest, I could never run the fastest, but I always got every loose ball. I was always a leader on the floor, and we beat teams I've guys that I know that are in the NBA now, and it was because I just had this mental thing. So I was like, well, maybe I could apply it to the book world, and it was far-fetched, but Bob Proctor says there's 3 types of goals. There's one type of goal where something you know how to do, you've already done it before, right? You want to get an apartment or a house, and you've already had an apartment or a house, whether you own it or rent it. Number 2 is goals you think you know how to do. I think I can do it. Given this, and this, I could do that. The 3rd type is ones you don't know how to do. I really don't know how to do. And that's where the real inspiration is, because you don't know how. So it's this thing you want, and you can't really explain it. There really isn't a why. People say, well, what's your why? I don't know. I just really want this thing. And those are the C-type goals, is what he calls them. So it was a C-type goal, and I think that is what gave me the inspiration to go for it.
Awesome. So when did the book start coming together? Did you start kind of piecing things together as you were traveling, or was it something you consciously put together when you came back, the first book?
I journaled while I was traveling, yeah. And then when I came back, I just wrote it, yeah.
Awesome. So I'm keen to talk about, obviously you shared your beginnings, and what are some of the kind of challenges you've faced on your journey in becoming an author and getting your books out there and publishing 2 books now? I know there's a 3rd one on the way. You spoke about knocking on the doors of the publishers and getting rejected. Talk to me about some of the challenges you face in getting the book out there.
Yeah, the biggest challenge is people didn't, and I still experience it. People don't take me because I have long hair and because I'm 24. At the time I was 19. I'm 19 years old, and I'm saying hey, publish me. I'm gonna sell as many copies as Wayne Dyer. People didn't take it serious. You don't even have a website. What are you doing? People just didn't take it seriously. And so that's why, you know, the story you're referring to is I went to my literary agent's house and I knocked on his front door and I said, "Hey, my name's Jake. Here's my book. I'm going to sell 1 billion copies." And he was like, "Don't ever say that again. Not even the Bible sold 1 billion." And I didn't even know. I was like, all right. So the biggest is just people not, you know, everyone can relate to that in one capacity or another. People don't give you that much credit, whether it's your age or maybe, you know, you're in the banking world. So people don't think, well, you could be an entrepreneur, whatever it is. There's always these things. And mine was definitely age and being, just my age. People don't take it that seriously. I'm 24 and a lot of other author speakers in the space are 60. So people just didn't take it that seriously. Bob Proctor has been someone that has been a big influence in my life. And he said, age is irrelevant. There's 65-year-olds that are dumb as a doorknob and have zero wisdom and intelligence. And there's 10-year-olds that are wise. It doesn't matter how old you are or your credentials. It matters how well you do something. So that was kind of when I could reframe it like that, I could see, okay, that it's not really a big deal.
Cool. So I kind of picked up on two kind of pivotal moments, the economics class and then getting the book deal. What other pivotal moments have you kind of experienced over the last couple of years?
Oh, I'll tell you a bad pivotal moment. When I had one publisher that was a publisher of my dreams, right? So I literally took 8x11 printer pieces of paper and I took hundreds of them and I took Sharpie and I wrote, "I am published by," we'll call them like Dream Book Publishing. Don't want to say their name.
Sure.
I taped it all over my wall, all over my ceiling, everywhere. If you walked into my room, you were like, "Whoa, he's published by Dream Book." I even put it and laminated it above the toilet, so I saw it when I went to the bathroom.
Amazing.
And they ended up denying me. And so I had to pull each piece off one by one. And so they told me, "Well, come on, like, why don't you make a Facebook fan page first?" I'm like, all right, I didn't even have one. And so I made one and I had 0 likes. Literally, I remember looking at it, Jake Ducey, 0. So I click it. Jake Ducey has 1 like, and it's by Jake Ducey on his private page. Nice. So I go back into my newsfeed and I'm looking at my newsfeed, and this guy I went to high school with that I played basketball with writes on it, quote, his status, "Jake Ducey invites you to like his Facebook fan page." Yeah, right. And it was so, like, this guy made a public post and said that I knew, and just he tried to humiliate me. And that was like, it was like, because that's a point where you're like, dude, I have 1 like, and my mom hasn't even liked it yet. Should I even do this? Like, and then all my friends started making fun of me, friends, quote unquote. So that was a really pivotal moment. Like, that was really, you know, my dream publisher. There's things you want, and sometimes they don't happen the way that you want. And then there's times you want something, and people will go out of their way in order to humiliate you or try to humiliate you or try to belittle you. And I realized then, don't be afraid to look crazy for the things that you love. So that was a pretty intense moment for sure. That's like, you know, no one deserves that to be. So that was definitely a pivotal moment where I had to decide, am I going to do this? Is this worth it to me or not?
So what happened in that moment then? I guess you had a certain emotional response to that.
Yeah, I mean, I felt
How did that drive you?
I felt like an idiot, right? Like, that's what happens. You know, this show's called Unstoppable Entrepreneur. There's a journey in if you're a genuine entrepreneur and you're genuinely building something on your own, there's a point where you don't know whether you're crazy or not. You literally are like, am I crazy right now? Like, is something wrong? Should I go check myself into like psychiatric care and go back and like take something stable and like more normal? That happens. And I had to decide, like, do I really love this? Do I really believe in this thing? Like, is there really a gut feeling I should do this? And that's when I got in touch with myself. And there's this quote, and it's something to the effect of, we have to decide whether we're going to worship the God of opinion or the God of our own heart. Everyone is worshiping something. And that's when I decided I was going to follow my heart, and it's panned out pretty well.
Awesome. So what have been your kind of proudest moments since making that decision to be persistent and follow your path and your dreams?
Oh man, probably the type of, I remember being 19 years old and reading Jack Canfield, the creator of Chicken Soup for the Soul books, Bob Proctor, Mike Dooley, he's in Notes for the Universe guy. These are people that I couldn't see myself really in because they were so big and they were so successful. And now they're my friends. Like, I was just emailing Jack and Bob yesterday. I was just on the phone with Bob last week. I was just at Jack's house 2 weeks ago. Awesome. So I think learning from the people that inspired me, honestly, just that growth, that learning, it is, and then just getting messages, right? It's like going through something where my mom thought I was crazy, like thought I ruined my life. And then to see, messages and emails of people connecting with it. And then when I got my first publishing deal, I literally started crying.
Amazing.
Because that was gnarly. Yeah.
I hope you found that guy who sent that message on your Facebook page at the beginning. That would have been amazing.
I did, actually. I saw him a year and a half ago at 7-Eleven, like at noon, and he was hammered drunk. And, wow. And he came up to, and he was just he wasn't mean to me, but he was just kind of like, oh, you're a big shot author now. And I was just like, oh, hey man, good to see you. And he was just really drunk. And I hadn't seen him ever since then.
Well, you did kind of tell the world that's what you're going to do, so what do you expect? But I often think, it's other people's fears when they put things out like that. When you get remarks of these haters that put things out there, I think it's their own insecurities and fears that are manifesting in those kind of comments. And I guess that kind of behavior that he showed then is probably a reflection of that, sadly.
Yeah, I think it's just important to remember not to take things personally, for sure.
Sure. No, that's a good note, actually. Let's pick up on that. So I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs that you and I have worked with. What would you say to people who are just getting started and they've got that kind of challenge of people questioning whether they're doing the right thing, or you've got people out there who are, sending negative energy? How would you advise people to deal with that kind of negativity or lack of belief from people outside of themselves?
I'd say a few things. One, just remember, don't be afraid to look crazy for the things that you love. Two, don't take things personal. And it's easier said than done, but just remember that nothing has to affect you. If a stranger walked up to you and said, hey, you're an asshole, you'd be like, this guy's crazy. Who is he? And just because we know someone and they tell us something bad about ourselves, we take it personal. Who cares? It's just some other person. And I think when we can put that in perspective, then it's a lot easier to see it for what it is. It's some person saying something. Who cares? And I think when we can remember things like that. And three is just really see and feel your vision. Because when you see and feel it, it doesn't matter what's happening outside of you. Whether it's something you were working on that failed, or whether it's someone that is just they're doing it for whatever reason, saying it's not a good idea. When you can get in touch with your vision, it doesn't matter. Because when you understand how the mind works, then it's irrelevant what somebody says. When you understand the subconscious mind, the conscious mind, that it works in pictures, and the dominant pictures and images you hold within yourself, within your subconscious mind, actually become reality, then it doesn't matter what someone says. Because you just whatever, man. You already know that what's in your mind is already done. So I think that repetition, that connection to the vision. I carry an index card that has my vision on an index card, and I just read it. I just walk around. I just read it while I'm in line getting coffee. I'm just reading it. On the treadmill at the gym, I started putting it on the treadmill, and I just read it for an hour while I run. And I think those things are important. Repetition is the only way. The more you repeatedly drill something into your mind, it goes from your conscious mind to your subconscious. And when it's in your subconscious mind, psychologists tell us that controls most of our lives, 90% of our lives. So when something can get drilled into your subconscious through repetition, then what somebody says is irrelevant, because you've already reprogrammed your mind that I don't care what this person says or whatever, or the results, not looking at it. So to think what you want to think, Wallace Waddle says, to think what you want to think regardless of truth is appearances. So when your bank account says this, when somebody says this, remember to think what you want to think regardless of what's going on outside. That's truth. And when you can hold to that truth, it will manifest if we can give the outside world less attention.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And the funny thing is, you were saying about feeling crazy because you had this idea and you just wanted to be an author, right? The crazier things have happened. I remember the story of Marconi and all of his friends wanting to lock him up because he's saying, I'm going to send sound across the universe.
Yeah, right.
Everyone thought he was mad. You just wanted to write a book, and people are thinking you're crazy. But talking about the power of intention, then. So, that driving home the vision. I know I've certainly experienced that in my life, and there's been times where I've had multiple things I'm focusing on or trying to go in different directions, and I always find this kind of inertia when I'm focused on multiple different things. But when I've identified a one kind of driving vision, things have really moved forward. So how have you experienced the power of intention? I know you said when you first started looking at travel, you had the intention of being an author. How has the power of intention affected your life?
We always have a predominant image. We always have an intention. It's just generally unconscious. Unconsciously we think that I can only do this. You think your dominant image was, I'm going to be a banker. That was your intention. We always have an intention. And so I think it's just becoming conscious of what are the dominant images and visions that are within ourselves. So I think the problem with most of us is we're unconscious. We're literally unconscious. So we don't know why we're doing what we're doing or really what we're doing it. Like, why are you going over there? I don't know. I'm not sure. Because there's an unconscious pattern that's playing, right? So when we can become conscious of what we're doing, things improve. So, just having a vision and goals, like I can't tell you how many things, like just the weirdest things happen. Like when I was 19, one of my goals was to become endorsed by and friends with, mentored by Jack Canfield, creator of Chicken Soup for the Soul series. We met in the weirdest way ever. That makes no logical sense. And I had it on a piece of paper. It was just the weirdest way. So time and time again, I see these things like Bob Proctor. I'm like, I don't know how to get a hold of Bob Proctor, and all of a sudden I get a hold of Bob Proctor. It's like all these weird things happen when we become conscious of what it is that we want and what it is that matters to us. It's like if you put a lemon seed in the soil, when you put that lemon seed in the soil, it knows it's a lemon seed. So when it's in the soil, it attracts everything that it needs in order to become a lemon tree. You don't need to tell it just want to let you know you're a lemon tree. And it's like, okay, and then you put it in and then it becomes a cherry tree. No, it's always going to be a lemon tree because it knows what it is. So when you can plant the vision, just like that has a nucleus that knows what it is. Our subconscious mind is our nucleus that attracts to us what our outer results of our life is like. So I think that's why it's important to have one. And everything. It's everything. It's essential to know who you are and what you want to accomplish in your life.
That's awesome. I think I really like the analogy of planting the seed. I think a lot of people out there trying to find, particularly in this generation, trying to find, their quote unquote purpose and trying to find meaning for their life and find what it is they're ultimately kind of called to do. How would you advise people to go and find, their gifts?
I think I used to subscribe to that notion. I don't subscribe to what's your why, what's your purpose. It's what do you want? You don't need to be able to logically well, I want this or my purpose is this. That's just a mental concept. Desire, this it's a feeling. It's not a concept. So when there's this feeling that you can't quite explain, like the Wright brothers, they couldn't quite explain. They were just like, I don't know, I just want to make something fly. It's this deeper gut impulse, right? It's this thing you feel within yourself that's just on such a deep level that's what drives you. That's what keeps you up or gets you up, or when you fall and someone says it's stupid, you get back up. Like I knew why, because I wanted this thing. That's why when people told me I was stupid and it was a bad idea and it wouldn't sell, is because I wanted this thing. And that's what looks crazy to other people, is when they can't understand you, because it's not mental. It's coming from something deeper, from the gut, from the heart, from the soul. So what do you really want? Seriously, what do you really want? That's the purpose, is to release those unexpressed desires within ourselves. And I think that's generally what people are missing. We're looking at these concepts. Well, if I start with my why and my purpose is this, it's just, what do you really want, right? What do you really want? Do you want to be an author? Do you want to be an entrepreneur? Do you want to feed the homeless in your community? Do you want to keep doing what you're doing exactly how you're doing it, but just get in better shape and meet new people? What is it that you actually want? And those desires will always change, but when we can be moving towards something like that, I think that we find life takes on a meaning, right? When we're going for what we want, because we find out, and it's not what we want that's important, it's who you become in the process. Henry David Thoreau says, the point of a goal isn't what you get, but who you become. When you accept that you want something instead of suppress it, right? Instead of say, well, that's not that realistic, or I don't know my purpose behind it, or whatever it is, then you can't become who you can be. And when you have this deeper vision, this deeper desire, and you start to take steps at it, it calls upon you to become something more than you've ever been before. And that's the real gift. That's the real beauty, is the progress of your character. And that's what I think fulfills us. So my thing is, what do you really want? I think everyone knows what they want. We've suppressed it and lied to ourselves so long that it almost doesn't exist anymore.
I mean, that's a great concept. I just in a couple of episodes ago, I was talking about the concept of self-directed purpose rather than self-discovered. A lot of people are kind of waiting for something to find them, whereas, like you said, it's within. It's something you can self-direct, and finding out what it is that you want to spend your time doing that's important to you. What is it you really want to do with your time, and using that as your driving force. But becoming more is a massive thing. So talk to me about that. When people find that desire and what they want to do, often people will find then there's a barrier. There's like an internal barrier as they go on that journey. It could be fear. It could be lack of belief. Overwhelm. How have you experienced any of these forces in your own life, and how have you overcome those things?
I still experience them. They never go away. I was just with Jack Canfield, right? He created $1 billion brand, Chicken Soup for the Soul, and the guy's got like more money than God. And so we're talking the other day, and he says he's telling me about how he went to this event. And he saw this young man who had this really nice camera, and Jack was like, "Oh, cool! Like, I need to get one of those cameras. That looks awesome. I need to start shooting." He said, "How much was it?" And the kid says, "I think $4,000." And Jack's like, "Oh God, $4,000? I can't spend $4,000 on a camera." And he starts like running through all this thing, like, "I can't do that. I can't spend that much money." He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm a multi-millionaire." So he goes out and buys the camera, all this lighting equipment, and like buys all this stuff. Everyone has that, right? It's this weird thing. It's our social conditioning. Bob Proctor calls it the terror barrier. The terror barrier. It's this real barrier of terror where we don't know, am I worthy of my desire? Or am I good enough? Or what happens if I fail? This, that, this. That's not the terror barrier that you feel, whether it's about fear or inadequacy or what have you, any of the things you discuss. Bob says that terror barrier isn't because of a lack of potential. It's due to inadequate social conditioning within the subconscious mind. And the only way to go beyond that is repetition. I have hypnosis. I self-hypnotize myself. Books is just taking the step regardless, and then you see, oh, that was an inadequate social conditioning. I liken it to fear is like the monster under your bed. When you're little, right, then you're like, Mom, there's a monster. And she comes in, it's the second time in a week. She's all angry because she's woken up. She's like, look, Dan, there's not a monster under your bed. Look under the bed. And you're like, oh, yeah, there isn't a monster. But you thought there was because you thought those thoughts. And your subconscious mind started to believe there's monsters under your bed. And then the thought actually went through your nervous system and created those stress and fear hormones. It actually felt real because you experienced it within your body. And so it's really just the level of awareness. Ignorance is what keeps us in the fear because we think the fear is real. And so when we can really look under our bed and see like how many of those monsters do we think are real because our thoughts and our nervous system are telling them that they are, we're actually experiencing it. People say fear is false evidence appearing real. Well, it is real. That's not true. You're actually feeling it in your nervous system, but it's just a matter if it's really a legitimate fear or if it's just this monster under our bed. So a lot of it really comes back to our social conditioning and what's in our subconscious mind and how we can reprogram it. So, I mean, I feel it all the time, but it's just recognizing this is happening right now. I feel this. And the only way to get beyond that terror barrier is to see, okay, this is a monster under my bed. I'm going to go beyond it. Abraham Maslow says most people will you can either step beyond your fear or back into comfort. Most people step back into comfort. So their income always has a ceiling on it because they always step back into the comfort. Their success always has a ceiling on it because they always step back into what they do. Their health always has a ceiling on it because they're like, I don't know, am I going to die if I turn it up a little higher on the treadmill? Like they just never push themselves that much. So I think we need to step into that discomfort rather than back into the comfort.
I mean, that brings into a concept of like upper limits. That's something I've been reading upon recently. Have you done any work in that area in terms of helping out people overcome their perceived upper limits and how to go beyond those barriers?
Well, that's what I'm all about. That's why I call my seminar Rich Without Work, because there's less work involved than we think if our subconscious mind is programmed right. And it's all about what's the dominant program in our subconscious mind. So there's two primary parts of your mind. There's a conscious mind that has the reasoning factor, right? I tell you that your walls are all blue and you're like, no, they're not. They're white. I just saw them 2 minutes ago. I'm looking at them right now. I'm like, no, they're blue. And you can take that thought and you can say that's not true. Well, whatever the dominant conscious thoughts you accept go into your subconscious. And your subconscious is like when you drive to the store and you don't even remember driving because you've driven it so many times. You just literally, it was a program that was playing. Or like when two people, whenever they're married and whenever there's a little disagreement, it turns into this big fight. It's because they're programmed like that. And so we have to look at what our programming is and then start to reprogram it. And I think, the only ways to do that is constant repetition, subconscious mind reprogramming, and various things like that. So that's what I'm all about, because things are easier than we think they are. The problem is we have an inferior conditioning that holds a little self-image of who we are. So it's like a thermostat. Your subconscious mind is a thermostat. It has no reasoning capacity. Whatever you give it, I think there's a monster under my bed because I've been telling myself that for 2 years. It's like a thermostat. Your income can jump, but it will always come back here. Your happiness will jump, but it will always come back here. So we have to change the thermostat. We have to change our self-image. We have to reprogram ourselves subconsciously. And that's why people read the same book. That's why Bob Proctor reads the same book over and over. That's why Gandhi didn't read a lot of books. He read the same books over and over again, because he said that it needs to sink in subconsciously. That's why a lot of people do that, is because you need to reprogram the thermostat and raise the thermostat. So that's why people write goals down and look at them all the time. It's because they need to reprogram the dominant images in the subconscious mind. So that's something I'm all about. And And so I listen to my hypnosises all the time. And that's why I put that card on my treadmill and stuff like that, is because it needs to be reprogrammed. It takes time to reprogram the subconscious mind, where for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, most of our lives, we've been told, you're not part of the top couple percent of achievers, of intelligent people. You can't make that much money. You can't be this happy, or, whatever our parents' programming was and their parents' programming. We generally accept that for everything from our income to who we endorse politically, right? So really looking at those programs and starting to question things, I think, is where we can really find those ceilings aren't as real as we thought they were.
Awesome. I remember going to a Tony Robbins seminar back in 2012, and he was talking about how to scratch the disc and erase some of the things. I think he's going to have to change the reference now, because the kids don't know what CDs are anymore. But you can't really do that to an MP3. But for you, you've talked about like having a vision and constant repetition of visualizing it and seeing things. Do you also have a set of like incantations or like a mantra or a set of beliefs that you read to yourself or repeat?
Yeah, well, I have a thing on my refrigerator I read every day, and then I have my personal declaration that I read every day in the present tense. One of the dominant things that I'm so grateful for is, I'm so happy and grateful now that money comes to me in increasing quantities through many sources on a continuous basis. Money comes to me in increasing quantities through many sources on a continuous basis. That's a new program. Our general program is money comes to me in limited quantities through the only source that I'm consciously putting my hands onto, and it can't come through other ways. So money comes to me in increasing quantities through many sources on a continuous basis is something that I like to dominantly share with myself, and even just simple things is like feeling peace inwardly and outwardly, being connected to joy and love. Like, that's really what we're after, is feeling this connection to joy and love. So reminding myself of that, and then not even concepts. I just sit and I smile.
Nice.
Because your thoughts change when you do that. Have you ever noticed that, like, the salesman that has a big smile on his face gets way more breaks than the one that is just like, this is just my disposition, I'm just like this. You're not just like this. Your habit is to be just like this. So that's how you appear to be. And so doing things like that seems to cause a lot of change and transformation. Those are some little things that work for me.
Awesome. So what other daily habits do you have to get yourself fully present and in the zone that you like to operate from?
I mean, exercise is really important. Pushing myself, exercising, meditating is important, because we are in such a fast-paced world, and it's so easy to get wrapped up in the mind that the breath gets shortened, so then the nervous system starts to get a little shortened. We have to reconnect to our breath through meditation, just to see the bigger picture, I think, and not get so wrapped up. It brings some depth back to the breath and oxygen to the brain. Exercise, I read a lot, things like that. I guess I like to read. I like to read the same things over and over. I record on my mic. I just record a self hypnosis, and then I go into GarageBand and I find a little like Tibetan sound bowls, pretty little sound, and I put that in the backdrop. And I have my hypnosis programs, right? And I just listen to them over and over and over again. So things like that. And then I try not to work that much. That's another important thing. We think that like we need to slave away, but that's an old concept. It's like, I know so many entrepreneurs are like, this is about grinding. When you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, sleep 1 hour a night. It's like, no, you don't need to do that. If your subconscious program tells you that that's the only way you're going to become successful, then that's the only way you're going to become successful. Yeah, you need to take action. But I think that when we can do a lot of these other things, we can set ourselves up for success as well.
Cool. So I know you've got some exciting things coming up in the summer, the event coming up, and a new book by the looks of things, all about helping new entrepreneurs. Could you talk to me a bit about how your vision is for what you're about to create in that area?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I'm excited. I've been running 2-day events, been going awesome, but I'm switching to a 3-day and calling it Rich Without Work seminar. Yeah, I mean, I went from an unknown self-published author to publishing with the biggest English publisher in the world, and my speaking fees went from $0 to $25 to $7,500 for a keynote. And it's not because I'm talented. It's because there's certain principles and systems that the world's most successful achievers and difference makers have always followed. And I didn't invent these. These are principles that people have used time and time again, that a handful of mentors that work with me that have made billions, inspired millions of people, and made billions of dollars, that they use, that were taught through them. And when we can align ourselves with the laws of compensation, the laws of thought, when we can understand these things, then we're working in harmony. Just like there's a law of gravity. There's more than one law. There's not just a law of gravity. Everything works in a certain pattern, and we can understand that. That's how you take a quantum leap, is you get in tune with the way that your mind functions and the way things work. And so I have this Rich Without Work program that's going to be awesome. I'm really excited for it. And it's about 10xing your income and impact in the world. And it worked for me. It's worked for a lot of people. And when you follow these systems that have been set in place for a long time, then you can win really big. And you don't need a degree. If you have a degree, that's great. But you don't need one. And if you follow these systems, so that's what it's about. And so, yeah, really pumped up on that. And, I think when people can really recognize this, that everything can change in an instant, a lot faster than we think.
Awesome. What would be, from your 3-day seminar, what would be one thing that someone listening to this podcast could implement right away that would start to get results of their business?
First thing is understand the law of compensation. So you're paid in accordance for the need for what you do, your ability to do it, and how difficult it is for replacing you. We think we're paid for the hours that we log. That's our general consensus. Or at least in America, it's like, well, how much am I getting paid per the hour? You're not even paid per the hour. You're paid for the value you bring to that hour. That's why some people work the same amount of hours and one person makes $1 million and the other person makes minimum wage. Why? Because the person making $1 million is more valuable. Why does Tim Cook get $52 million or whatever from Apple a year? It's because he's more valuable than another CEO. They have the same title. They have the same position. Tim Cook might even work less hours, but he makes like $1 zillion. Why? Because he brings more value to that time. So understand that money works in accordance to certain laws. The first is the need for what you do. If there's a need for what your service is, then you have a higher income ceiling than like me trying to sell you a broken pen. You don't have that much need for a broken pen. You'll just go buy a new pen. In accordance to the need is how much money is available in it. And then second is your ability to do it. How much service can you render? This is, you're not paid for your hour, you're paid for the value you bring to the hour. How much service can you provide in order to better another human being's life? That's why income and impact are correlated. The more valuable you become as a human being, with the specific service you want to provide, the higher your ceiling, the more money you can make at it. That's why Jim Rohn says, you don't earn what you want, you earn what you are. However valuable you are is how much money you will ultimately make. And that's amazing because when you realize that your ability to do something is totally in your control. It takes time, you got to study, but you can get better and better. And the third is the need to replace you. Why does one salesperson for one company make 10 million and the other person can't survive and can't pay any bills? Because it's all on compensation, right? It's based off performance. That person is easy to replace. You're out, you're gone. You're not becoming better and more valuable. You're not providing service that's making a difference in somebody's life. So when we can recognize that the law of compensation works in 3 ways: your need for what you do, your ability to do it, and the difficulty it will be in replacing you. That's empowering because you recognize that your income and your impact in the world, your happiness, all of these things are directly correlated, and they're within your control. The more you can get better, the more you can create a successful business that impacts people in a positive way.
Absolutely. And I think, I guess you've kind of experienced it yourself, working with people like Jack Canfield, Bob Proctor. I consider them to be like the godfathers of this personal development industry. But there's so many other industries out there where the kind of godfathers are in position and they've created their legacy. But then there's this whole space now for the new wave to move into, because we think and act differently, and times have changed and there's different technologies available. So we live in this unique time where people are able to create that impact. We have, I just wake up every morning thinking, my goodness, thank God I live in this time, because I have all these technologies. You and I wouldn't be able to do this even 10 years ago. So we're so blessed to have all this technology at our fingertips. So once people can tap into that principle, which you've spoken about, and finding their value and looking for that place in the market where they can create the most value based on their own personal skills, people can really create something special. And I think that's a really important principle. Cool. So that sounds like a really exciting seminar. What does the future look like for you? What are you working on beyond the seminar? What's on your vision at the moment?
That's it. I mean, I'm going to take it international. It's funny because I never really realized how many. I kind of realized, but I never really realized until I actually looked at my AWeber, my email provider, and I saw how many countries people are from, and I was like, holy crap. And so I'm going to take it international. I'll probably do Switzerland at the end of this year, like you and I were talking about. Going to do some other UK, Australia. So that's something I'm working on. I'm writing the Rich Without Work book too. Profit from Happiness is my book out June 7th, 2016. And that's about ways to increase your income and impact through a little different ways, like through our connection that we can have on people and the positive influence we can have in really subtle ways. And then I'm working on that next book that'll be 2017. So those are really it. And then trying to get in the best shape I've ever been in is really important to me. So probably those three things. Those are the things that I'm pushing towards.
Awesome. Just into the quick fire round now to finish up. What is the most game-changing piece of advice you've personally received and implemented?
It's probably from Bob Proctor. Bob told me to stop telling people, stop being like, hey, I'm 24. He's like, stop. That doesn't matter. It matters how well you do something. You're a successful author, seminar leader, and speaker. Some people are 50 and they suck. This is what you are. Stop talking about how old you are. And whether it's age or whatever, we do that with a lot of things in our life. So that was a pretty significant thing. Bob's made a big impact in my life.
I mean, you could tell people you're a 40-year-old speaker and people are like, damn, you look good. You look good for me, man. Work in your favor. And next thing is, if you had to start all over again and go back to where it all began, would you do anything differently to what you've done now?
No, I mean, you can't really do anything differently. One time George Carlin was filling in on the Today Show, and some actor was on, and he's talking about his new movie. And it was about like how if you hopped on this train, you could go back in time and change your life. And the guy was like, everyone wants to do that. And George Carlin was like, well, I don't, because everything that happened made me who I am. And it's important to recognize that what lies behind you pales in comparison to what lies within you. So, I mean, I think doesn't really serve the value in it, because all of these hiccups is really what make us who we are.
That's a great perspective. And lastly, what are you reading right now?
I'm like a TV reader where instead of a TV and I change the channels, I change the books all the time. But I read over and over again. I read Wallace Wattles' Science of Getting Rich. I really liked Orrin Claff's book, Pitch Anything. I thought that was really good. I liked that one a lot. And I'm reading Raymond Hollywell's book, Working with the Law. I do a lot of programs, I'm taking Bob's Thinking into Results program. And so, yeah, things like those. Those are some of my most favorite ones.
Awesome. So finally, how can people find out more about you? Where can they find out about your seminar and your books?
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I mean, my name's Jake Ducey, so just Ducey, Ducey, JakeDucey.com, and all my books are on there. Purpose Principles, my last book, and Profit from Happiness they'll be in they are in bookstores, and you can find those online too, Amazon. But yeah, JakeDucey.com is where you can find me, and if you gravitate to it, thanks for listening, and appreciate you having me on, Dan.
Yeah, my pleasure. And we look forward to seeing you in Europe.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I can't wait to go.
Cool, man. Well, it's an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Yeah, Dan, thank you.
Wow, what a mind-blowing episode. Jake has such wisdom. I'm totally inspired. Jake is currently planning his European tour, so please do give him a shout and tell him how much you'd like to see him in your city, and be sure to check him out on his website. What's up next? Tune in on Monday, where I'll be debriefing on how I'll be personally implementing what I've taken away from this show and sharing some more unstoppable insights with you. There are a lot of exciting things going on over at Unstoppable HQ right now, so be sure to subscribe over at unstoppablepodcast.com. From there, you'll be able to connect with the Unstoppable Tribe, which is the private Facebook community for all those who want to become unstoppable in business and life. It's just opened up, so come over and connect. On Tuesday, the 15th of March, I'll be running a webinar for entrepreneurs who are in the business of creating transformational results for clients. You're going to have the opportunity to watch as I show you the steps that I will be personally taking to launch my brand new high-ticket signature program and take it from zero to full capacity within just 28 days. It's pure content with nothing for sale, and I'll be showing you the 5-step process to attract a predictable flow of high-ticket clients to your business, even if you're just starting out or you do not have a marketing budget to spend. The presentation is for any entrepreneur or business owner whose primary business model is based around your expertise, knowledge, or abilities. So if you're a coach, consultant, speaker, thought leader, trainer, online marketer, or network marketer, and your primary motive is to help others to transform either their life or their business, then this is for you. If this sounds like you, then head over to danjgregory.com/webinar. That's danjgregory.com/webinar. And that's it for this week. Thank you to everyone who continues to share the show and spread the word. I'm honored and grateful for your kind support. Thank you so, so much. Until the next episode on Monday, go out there, make it happen, and unleash your unstoppable self on the world.